You are listening to the Foamy Heads podcast, where we discuss craft beer and anything else that accompanies a glass.
We're not going to turn it off. We're live. Hey, we are in Nashville, Mitch.
Oh, yeah.
Foamy Heads are in Nashville. Mitch and Rich hanging out on the mics today. It's not just the Foamy Heads hanging out on the mics today.
Right, that's right.
We've got our partners in crime, the Brewery Underground podcast, also Nashville-based.
That's right.
Steve and Scott.
How are you guys?
What's up, dude?
Cheers, pros,
Yeah.
fellas.
This is awesome.
This is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Two podcasts coming together
Hell
in the beer community.
Raising everything up. Hey, and we had a we did a collaboration with you guys. We did a happy hour one night. All of us jumped on
Yes, we
Instagram
did.
Live and
We
had a
did.
good time.
Yep. So we know we're getting to know each other quite a bit. we,
Yeah.
we run across the same circles a lot.
Yeah.
We met each other at the first time. Of course, I'd known Scott for a day or two, but met you guys at the Preds Fest this year, and we were on your podcast. That was a fun day.
That was awesome. Yeah. We worked a little too hard that day and didn't get nearly enough beer. Right when we got to Dark Shadow, they won, and we didn't get any.
Yeah.
I can't speak for him, but I had enough for you guys that day.
You did good.
I did good.
You
yeah.
did really good.
Yeah. Got
Steve
her
worked
done.
hard.
Yeah,
We saw you guys working hard. We're like, we'll go drink for them.
That's what we
can't
did.
go.
we're getting
Yeah.
it done.
Leveling the play. But you're keeping things the equilibrium in the world.
That's
right?
absolutely right. Like these guys, man, they're pounding it out over here. Let's go help them out by drinking.
Let's
more
go
beer.
just drink more beer.
Please.
Doing it for a great
The
cause.
same amount of beer has to be drank. It might as well come from you guys, right?
Exactly. Thank
We
you
can
very
do
much.
it.
Yeah.
You can do. You saw it. Well, you saw it first.
Yeah, we did good. That was a good time. We were on the floor just kind of hanging out, and everything had already been finished, right, Mitch? We had interviewed a few people, and we were talking around, and we were just sampling beers. And all of a sudden, like, Scott comes up with like this beer in his hand. He was like,
Well, they kept saying,
like,
people
Mitch,
kept
what's
saying-
going on? But you admit you'd been talking with Mitch.
Yeah, but somebody had said, hey, the Foamy Heads are down there on the end, and we hadn't got that far down there yet, so
Yeah.
we worked our way, and I was like, well, I'm going to go say hi.
Yeah.
And then he was somewhere else.
I was on the other side, and our friend Brew McCoy, Armando,
Yeah.
he comes over to me. He's like, Steve. And he's like leading me towards your podcast like I'm some sort of like somebody. And I'm like, okay.
We got to wait for Steve, guys. We got to wait
Yeah.
for Steve to get here.
Wait
Yeah.
for Steve.
get away from me. You know.
It was a great time, though.
It was. It was
Yeah.
really good.
There's some popping going on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's
I-
not our beer either.
No, and it may not even be our audio. It could just be my headset's going off. But
Well, let's lay out the scene here, guys. We are at Fait La Force in Nashville, and we're sitting on the patio.
Yeah.
This is freaking cool. We're sitting
It's
outside.
great.
This is awesome.
This is the first time we've done something, our podcast. I think you guys probably have,
Mm.
but we've never done a podcast outside before in the elements.
Yeah.
And it's a nice day. We were actually here about a week ago after the
really?
the brew hop
Yeah.
and
Nice.
tour. It was raining that day, so we would not have been able to be sitting out here had we been doing that. We actually had to go inside. But Fait La Force, man, this is my third time here.
They're
Love the
killing
beer.
it, man.
What are we all drinking? By
They're
the way?
killing it. So this is the Imperial Menace, which is the
Mhm.
dark Czech lager.
Yes.
And from what I understand, I had this a couple of months back and loved it so much I bought a couple of 4-packs to take home. But from what I understand, they're reaching the end of this one.
Oh, it's a
So
shame.
we there might be not much of this much longer. So I figured get it while we could.
By the
Yeah.
time you hear this podcast, it'll be gone.
It'll definitely be gone.
And being that it's Oktoberfest season, we already had their Oktoberfest.
Yeah, we started with their Fest beer.
Was that
Yeah.
Season of Fools?
Yeah, Season of Fools,
Yep.
and it was so good. There it is. Mitch
Yes.
just got it right there. It's such a great color
Yeah,
too,
it's stellar.
and lots of flavor.
Yes.
Yes.
one of the best of this style of beer.
I-
It's just Fait La Force is killing it.
And
Yeah.
when I came here a couple of weeks ago, it was before Steve and I came just last week. They had 2 Fest beers or 2 Oktoberfest.
Oh,
one. I
wow.
think they had a Marzen in that one. So I don't know if the other one's still up there or not. But man, they were back to back. They were
Dude.
killer.
So
yeah.
good.
Oh, this place is great.
Always
isn't
on the
it?
lookout for a
Yeah.
good fest beer or Oktoberfest, during the season. And, it's October now, but, how long is this stuff going to be around?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not. And we were talking with I'm trying to remember who we were talking with, Mitch. It came up in conversation, but we were we were talking about Oktoberfest. It might have been actually, it might have been conversation with Michelle when we were at Marble Fox talking about fest beers and Marzens and things coming out, and like how much earlier these Oktoberfest beers are coming out now. You know,
and it was a problem because we did the same thing. I think sometime in August we started talking about it, and like, shit, by the time the season comes around, it's going to be gone. We can say that we are in the season right now, and we are still drinking October. This is what you want.
Yes.
You know,
The end of August. The end of August, there's a place in Smyrna called Liquor Junction, and I saw that they already had like the Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest out, and they also had some pumpkin beers out. Now, I'm a well-documented Sam Adams Oktoberfest guy.
Yes,
love it.
Yeah,
and the first day was out. I mean, I'm in like Publix or somewhere, and I'm getting a. But the thing I laughed about too, and I'm like, it's a little early for that. I also saw the pumpkin beers out. Now, this is going back, this is probably the end of August. And I'm going, it's a little bit too early for pumpkin beers, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Because they tend to be a little heavier.
Yeah.
You know, and
you want to go with the cooler weather for that.
Once I get past my, I'm not sure when I get past my Oktoberfest season because I like it to last till about December.
Okay.
But it probably won't this year now that I'm doing a podcast and I'm trying to move on and be current and relevant.
Right.
Well, you can thank Sam Adams for that whole trend of starting early because it used to be like, Boston Lager or something available all year round. But like once they started getting into they would have Oktoberfest, and then after that they would have Winter Lager.
Yeah.
But before that they've got their summer wheat and then their spring beer also.
Yeah.
So, but the problem with that is probably 10 or 12 years ago, but they ran out of their seasonal beer early. So they brought in Oktoberfest in like mid-July.
Oh my God.
And people are like, it's 100 degrees outside. Why are we drinking Oktoberfest beers? And then they ran out of it early because they only brew so much, right? So then at that point they're like, okay, what do we do now? It's like, well, let's release Winter Lager. And I'm like, but it's September.
Winter Lager.
What are you doing?
I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
So I'm like conflicted. I go, as a beer drinker, as an Oktoberfest guy, I don't know when I'm supposed to stop drinking Oktoberfest.
Right.
Should I just go, all right, it's November. No,
you drink until you're ready to
until I'm ready.
done.
So it's no longer there anymore. Yeah.
You kind of wish it would last all year round. It might not have the same effect, like, oh, I can get it in July or I can get it in May or something. And it's like, I don't really want it then either. But when it comes out, it's a big deal. It just goes away too quickly.
And these breweries, and we're going to get into the whole like Fait La Force and then the state of it, which is a brilliant topic, by the way, that you guys had thrown out this idea about, getting the state of the craft beer industry. But these breweries that are creating these Marzens and these fest beers and these Oktoberfests are miles above what we used to drink.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Because it's their own spin on things, and it's so much better.
Well, and there's a demand for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for people that love craft beer and especially Oktoberfest season, to me, if you're not doing that, if you're showing up, if somebody's showing up at a brewery and they're like, "Where's your fest beer? Where's your Oktoberfest?" I'm sure there's people that are just going to go, "Okay, I'm going somewhere else."
I want to think too. And Oktoberfest beer is always going to be popular, but the popularity of lagers in the past couple years, because they've gotten so much better, at least in my opinion, with the craft beer, that just because they're lagers too, so it just rolls right into it.
Yeah.
I want that all year long, in some form.
Absolutely. And you see this.
Ooh, AF8.
Is that you, Mitch? What is going on?
Number 8 is spiking.
Okay.
I got number 7.
Number 7.
Who's 8?
Probably me. 925.
Is there a ghost in the machine?
Yeah, it's Nashville. All these frequencies.
Such a great beer, by the way. Ghost in the Machine.
I love it.
Such a great IPA.
What number? It's on the green.
It might be.
It says channel 7, 8. Well, mine's 7.
Mine is definitely channel 8. That's me.
Is it
all
you?
right? Yeah.
Go ahead and just drop in this mic then.
It is
and
100%
We'll see
me.
what happens.
I'm going to swap out mics real quick.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Yeah,
True professionals, though, just change it out on the fly.
we try, but wireless shit, it's always like hit or miss.
Yeah.
Like
back.
there's a little static there.
Okay.
always
It's
something.
okay. It's okay. I think I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yep. You sound good.
I'm picking up a little bit of static there.
Yeah, a little feedback.
Yeah. I could jump back to the I just need to be a little bit careful on the other one. Let's do Yeah, I probably want to switch back to that one.
Okay. If you all don't mind the pop, I don't mind the pop, but it just sucks in the ear a little bit. But But yeah,
man, I had a "that's what she said" joke, and I totally pushed the button and turned it off.
Have a microphone.
It's too late now. It's too late.
Yeah, that's the only thing. That's why we had been carrying wired mics in the event of that, but now we've had such great product from this that we just got rid of those and put them into a different bin.
Yeah, we got more versatility too with the wireless ones. You can walk around. Steve and Kyle are probably going to break out into a song later.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's going to happen.
We'll turn the camera around for them too.
Yeah.
By the way, we do have some people here, some buddies of ours, Tom Schumacher and Kyle Mask are right here behind us.
Welcome,
cheers,
fellas.
guys.
So,
Cheers,
fellas. Tom's been on our podcast before, at least once. Twice. Cheers.
So Steve brought up a good point, and this is actually a good segue into what we want to talk about today. So the main conversation, and I think we have Parker from Fait La Force is going to be joining us here in a little bit, also head brewer and owner of Fait La Force Brewing out here in Nashville, Tennessee. But interested to get his take on the whole subject. But I think actually, Scott, I think it was you that mentioned it. It was one of you guys that mentioned it when we were in the chat, and we were like, hey, you know what? There's a very uncertain scene right now in the craft beer industry,
and it was hitting. And I don't know what the last straw was that gave me that idea, but it was like, not these guys too. It probably was Panther Creek. It was like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
And we all know them and love those guys, and it was like, okay, so somebody's got to say something or just talk about it, and not that we're going to solve anything, but man, it sucks.
It's good conversation for not people, but podcasts to talk about also, because it shines light on this situation that when people are just going out and drinking beer and they're like, oh, I'm going to pick up this, and I've heard it from time and time again, oh, those guys just aren't doing anything, like, they're not doing anything groundbreaking, or they're not doing this. And it's like, but that doesn't always need to be the case.
No, it's kind of unfair.
Yeah. Yep. And when you've heard it before, I've heard it before, when a brewery closes, you hear people go, oh, well, man, it sucks, but like, I kind of get it. I hadn't been there in a while and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Maybe it's not your style of beer.
Yep.
Depending on, I think one of the conversations, the topics that we threw around was the whole, like, location and where you are, how much competition you have, kind of depends on how creative you have to get, but nothing wrong with just creating a good premium lager.
Right.
Yeah.
And you because you live in Murfreesboro, I live in Rutherford County as well, and you mentioned Panther. I hate that they're going out of business.
Right.
And they're still going to sell their beer at various places, but the fact that we can't go to the physical location stinks. And then what's the other one? Mayday. Thank you. They're going out.
Yeah.
So, but you think about over the last like 5-6 months, there's been a couple of places that have moved in. Mr. Brews has moved in. That's a tap room. I've been there probably 3 or 4 times. I like the place. I'm not taking my dollars away from anybody.
Right.
But, there's probably other people that, maybe I'm going to go there. And then Tailgate has moved into Murfreesboro too. So even though Murfreesboro is growing, is it growing enough to sustain a lot of new breweries?
I don't know.
Middle Ground opened in the past year. It seems
they just celebrated their 1-year anniversary.
Seems like they're doing well. We've been there, want to go back and support them again.
And we've talked about this too amongst ourselves. It's spreading the dollar, but it's also, and I didn't think about it that way. When Steve and I make a Murfreesboro trek, right, we'll leave Nashville and we hit them all. Like, our plan is to hit everybody and spread that around. But I guess if you live in a town or live in a Murfreesboro and I've got one I'm going to pick that's close to my house, that's the only one I'm going to go to. So
and didn't want to leave out Cedar Glade, by the way.
Yeah,
because they're
Cedar
doing
Glade,
some good stuff.
Those guys are awesome.
It's not just, and I think we can dive into it more, but it's not just business too. I think there are other extenuating circumstances in some of these that we're talking about. Mayday, I think, has a different issue.
Yeah. A lot of it's not just location, but a lot of it is, like you said, outside circumstances that we may not even think about as beer drinkers, that are probably, lease issues, buildings, and sometimes they can't go somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have the money to do it. They have the money to keep operating where they are now. And then maybe the building manager, the lease owner, goes, hey, you know what? Times are tough, man. Yeah. Inflation sucks. We're going to have to increase your rent by a few $100 a month. And beer's already thin margins, as we all know.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they do, hey, if you don't want to stay, we got them lined up to come in this spot, or sell the building or something. So
that's unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah.
So I love that point that you're making, and there's a Murfreesboro connection to what I'm about to say. So I used to work downtown off of like the Mumbrian, and there was a sub place there, not a beer place, it was just sub, but still local, right? There was a place called Sub Stop, and it was a pink building. They had the greatest. Oh my gosh, you remember that place?
Yeah,
greatest subs. When I moved, when I moved to town and I was working off like Music Row, we'd go down there about once a week.
Yeah,
and then it's probably going back about 10 years. They raised the rent because I think the landlord probably wanted to put up like a big hotel or whatever they want to do, so they went out of business. They actually opened up for a brief period of time in Murfreesboro.
Oh.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. It was around like
Where was it?
Oh, I think it was
it's
around
near the square.
It was around the square,
it?
maybe Church Street.
Okay.
But they weren't there for maybe a year. I mean, I went down.
Last.
Yeah, I went down there twice, and I was like, But I guess the point being, that's something that maybe, as you say, we don't always think about. It is the business side of things where maybe they don't own the building, and whoever owns the building is raising the rent. And that's a big factor. I mean, it has to be a big factor.
It sucks. To your point, Sam's Sushi got booted the same way.
Yeah.
They wanted to sell the whole Printer's Alley thing. He had a little shop, super small shop off Printer's Alley, but he got booted. Same with JJ's, J&J's. I think it was a market.
Yeah.
It's got sort of a history to my youth, but anyway, there's a lot of places like that, especially in Nashville.
Steve, I think you're right too. I think if an owner of a building sees a success, the brewer's doing well, they're doing well, let's jack them up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's somebody, they're busy all the time. Maybe there's something like that. Just because they look like they're successful. It's just
no good deed goes unpunished.
That's it. They're thriving. They can afford it. Let's jack them up.
Yeah.
All of us did an Instagram live thing a few weeks ago. And one of the things I said on there until we started, you guys have been doing your podcast for like 4 years?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Okay. When we started this about a year ago, and it's not something I researched because why would I, right?
Right.
I didn't realize that there were a lot of brewery owners. And we were talking about this before we went on today. Like the guys at Panther, they have other jobs. This isn't just their full-time job.
Yeah.
So to me, I mean, I think that makes it harder too.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're trying to make a living at this, but
do their passion at the same time and in hopes that that's going to take over.
Is there enough capital? I mean, there's so many things involved.
Yeah. And go ahead, Mitch.
I've got such mixed feelings about why the breweries are closing in Murfreesboro. I mean, we all know why, end of the day, kind of like there's just not enough money being moved around to them, but it's a college town. But I know the market sucks.
Yeah.
And there's other ready-made cocktails, seltzers, and THC drinks and all sorts of stuff available now that I'm sure young people are way more, into at the moment. But I just don't understand how Murfreesboro can't hold on to their craft beer breweries. I don't get it. What is the real issue here other than just the dollar today, of course, doesn't go as far as it used to, but I think that we all feel that.
Yeah. But that's so I'm not an expert on the economy, but I think that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is you have the same amount of money, companies aren't giving out bonuses and raises, right? But on top of that, everything's more expensive. Back during the lockdown days, BC before COVID, like in March of 2020, when the whole country just was like forced to go indoors, and they dropped interest rates all the way down to zero, and they said we're just going to start printing tendies for everybody, right? So like people were getting $1,000 like free money and just like to do whatever
that went
they
to
want.
beer.
Yeah, yeah. But that was the point though, right? The point was to like stimulate and boost the economy.
Yep.
So you have all of this money and this cheap money and loans that people are taking, PPP loans and borrowing money at 0% interest rate, and people were either laid off from their job or they were furloughed or they were working at home, and the expectation of them was just kind of keep the lights on and not really like not show up and show out for their job. So what did they do? They started pursuing their passion and their hobby. They were opening up breweries and breweries that had just opened when, well, I don't have enough money to rent a space, but I do have enough money to like brew beer. So
I will say one thing about Panther though, that they were one of the most active breweries.
yeah,
there wasn't a
there's
week.
always something going on the
Yes.
patio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did not sit on their hands.
No.
And they make great beer.
Yeah.
From day one. Because they opened during COVID, but they are in Rutherford County. So compared to Davidson County, they could stay open. Or they're when things were closed down here. So you could go out there, and we went out there at one time, and they were just getting started. Like, these guys are going to do well.
The conversation, I'll never forget it. We left and we went in there, and I can't remember who was tending bar, but he said, we're getting a lot of people that are coming down here from Davidson County, which is Nashville for people that are listening out of state, during COVID. So there was a lot of restrictions. There wasn't as many in the other county.
Yeah.
So people were coming in, and then when we went in there, I think they had maybe 3 or 4 beers on tap. And I remember leaving, and Scott goes, did you really like that place or not? And I said, damn right I did. I said, let me tell you something. They opened during a pandemic. I want to see these people. I want to see these guys succeed.
Yeah.
And as you just said a minute ago, Scott, over the last couple of years, 2 years ago, you go in there, and up until, the time that they're going to close, Saturday nights you go in there, and they've got certainly they've got music outside and all that other kind of stuff. So they've been trying.
Yeah,
they really have.
And that's the whole point, is you've got these guys that have been grinding day in and day out from day one, when the opportunity was to be able, like, I would argue that they put in way more effort than a lot of other people pursuing that passion did. Like Mitch said, day in and day out, there's always something going on.
They were there. They were present. When you go in there, you would see those guys in there.
And
you see them at Beer Fest. They're there
people had money, and they were spending it and things like that. And because they didn't have a lot to do, they were going to hit breweries. So you had, 0% interest loans. You had PPP loans that, you may or may not have had to pay back. So you had this like booming economy time when it was just anything goes.
Yep.
And now you fast forward, Parker came in at exactly the right time.
Man.
Like this is perfect. Parker with Fait La Force Brewing.
Good to see you.
How's it going? I'll tell you, I would keep an eye on these because they're probably going to turn skunky so fast.
You guys are sitting in the sun.
All right, okay. This one right here.
Into the shades, or
is it getting hotter over there for you guys?
A little bit.
Yeah, it's outside. It's all good though. But it's a good point. You came in at the right time, because we had just transitioned from going from like where people were getting like all kinds of cheap free money, and people were spending money on beers, and all of a sudden, and now
I need some of that free money.
Yeah, well, sorry, man. I think those days are over right now, because we're now in that stage where we're tightening, right? I've got like, we all make the same amount of money every year, maybe less, but because it's not worth as much anymore, I have $1 that now, instead of 4 breweries, I have to spend more on groceries and keep that. So maybe I can only go to 2 breweries or 3 breweries, or I have to buy a beer that, one less beer. And that affects people like Parker.
Yeah.
And that affects Fait La Force, and that affects all these breweries.
Yeah. It's funny. I was actually, so I was inside working on our brewery financials, because it's the 4th. So into the month kind of thing. So going over from September, and also CBC back in May, they have like the state of the craft beer report. And so I was kind of looking through some of those numbers, and there was a whole section covering, exactly that. Basically, when you look at the numbers, they're kind of seeing not only they have a chart that kind of shows the number of people who are saying they're drinking more craft beer right now, or people who are drinking less craft beer. And for the last, 10 years, it's kind of been more craft beer is higher, less craft beer is lower, but those two charts are sort of
converging.
And they're just now hitting a point where essentially an equal amount of people are saying they're drinking more as drinking less.
Yeah.
And then they're also looking at the amount of like occasions, the people who are drinking craft beer, like how often are you drinking?
Yeah.
And people are kind of saying they're drinking less or spending less. So we don't have, even if people were drinking less and spending less, as long as more people are coming into the market, then you can kind of counteract it. But we're kind of getting it both, where no more people are coming into drinking craft beer, and the people who are drinking craft beer are drinking less and spending less. So
So
definitely tough.
I have a couple of questions on that, but
Yeah.
I am interested because you brought us something else out here, and you mentioned that we probably want to get into this before.
Yeah, I was
it
very
goes-
intentional
so-
trying to sit it in the shade because that is a beer that we kegged literally yesterday. So it is as
nice.
fresh as
This
it
is great.
can be.
We got breaking news here.
What are we
Keg
drinking
yesterday.
about? Oh, that's
Yeah, and we literally
Very citrusy.
dang.
This beer is called Fresh Hop Amarillo. So
Okay.
you can probably guess what this beer is a little bit about, but it's our first fresh hop beer we've ever done. And that's because Crosby Hops this year kind of came out with a new product called CGX. It's cryogenically frozen fresh hop. So
interesting.
we're a little too small to be able to do like a wet hop beer, like get it right off the vine, shipped to us that quickly.
Right.
There are a lot of breweries in town that are doing that. I know Bearded Iris got a ton of fresh hops this year, and I think I actually ordered so much they were selling some off to some other breweries.
Oh, wow.
So there's probably going to be quite a few fresh hop beers coming out. But we couldn't quite do the whole wet hop thing. But this is like
This is a good alternative.
a good opportunity for us. So basically what Crosby's doing is they're picking these Amarillo hops off the vine and taking them immediately in to cryogenically freeze them.
Wow.
And so that's just giving them as fresh
This
as
thing is fresh
as
as fuck.
possible.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Locking in all
That's
those
really
really
good.
blends,
That
essential
aroma,
oils
man.
to give you like that super bright burst of like flavor.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously it's we brewed with it, kegged it, and so it's super fresh for us too. So it is just like Amarillo a lot of times will give you that kind of orangey flavor, and this to me is just like
Oh, it is. It's
orange
the first
juice.
thing.
I mean,
Yes.
it is a
awesome.
You get that
burst
on the
of orange
nose, too.
flavor.
Smell it, boys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cheers.
guys.
Cheers to everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
so
bringing this
super
out to us.
tasty,
What
yeah.
are you calling this one?
We literally named it Fresh Hop Amarillo.
Amarillo.
We were like, we're talking about names. You know what? Like, why not we just say exactly what it is? It's it's a hazy IPA, but Fresh Hop Amarillo is what we're calling it.
It's killer. That's fantastic.
It's so good. I love this style of beer.
Mhm.
It gives you a little bit of that juicy backbone that stays with
Yeah.
you after you finish the sip. But on the nose, this beer it's citrusy.
Mhm.
It's hoppy, obviously, but it's dank too. So I'm getting some wet dank hops on it. So like to your point, like it may not be fresh off the vine, but like it tastes good. It tastes fresh.
It's
It's
as close
just
as we can
yeah.
get.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the thing. There's like definitely a stigma around like frozen foods and frozen things.
Mhm.
But like one of my favorite things to watch is like cooking shows and stuff. And there's a show on Netflix that David Chang hosts, and David Chang talks a lot about a lot of times frozen foods for most people is actually the freshest you can get that
Oh.
food. If farms are doing it correctly, if they're harvesting and freezing it immediately, it locks in
Never
all
thought
of that
about that.
freshness. So if it's handled and treated correctly, a lot of times getting frozen ingredients is actually a lot fresher than someone harvesting it, processing it, shipping it across country,
Sits
in
on a
grocery
truck,
store,
goes
it
on the
comes to your
interstate.
house, and so now it's been off the vine or out of the ground or whatever for
Yeah.
a week or more. This is, essentially right off the vine in 24 hours, like that freshness is locked in, and then it's in the glass.
It's definitely in there. You didn't lose anything on
Nope.
this one.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Nope.
And you bring up a good point, because there's this stigma against frozen things. Like growing up, I was poor. I didn't have any money, but like, you go to these restaurants and they're talking about like steaks. They're like, oh, it's fresh steaks, never frozen. This never frozen. I'm like, what's wrong with frozen? Like, I don't think you guys understand. Like, I'm sorry that it's not like from the cow to the table in 2 days or whatever, but like, I never thought about that. You take something like hops right off the vine and you can put them in a truck and you can transport them and do all that kind of stuff, and you lose a lot along the way. But if you freeze it right as it's coming off, you're not losing anything.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's there. Yep.
And then so people like Parker get access to this kind of stuff and they can brew with it, and it comes out to be an amazing beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many, other benefits to it for us as a brewer, like for ease of use, for, yield. We don't have so much loss as using, if you're using whole cone, fresh hops, that they're like sponges. They're going to soak up so much of your liquid. So
Right.
your yield goes down. So there's a lot of other benefits to it too, but this is the kind of their first time putting it out there. And we're like, let's
Try
give
it
it a
out.
shot.
Yeah,
And-
don't let it be the last.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's-
please
came
don't
out
make this a
awesome.
series. This would be awesome.
But yeah, this has got so much just like, it's just pure hoppiness. I was like, all right, I'm going to be really careful when I bring it out here. Set it in the shade, because as soon as it sits in the sun for like 30 seconds, it's going to start being
Starts
skunky.
going. Is
I'm
that your
all
first
like-
sip, Mitch?
No, I've been
Okay.
sipping, but I've been taking photo too. It's beautiful. The nose on it is super welcoming.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it is so, like orange juice. maybe a little bit of that pineapple-y kind of flavor because it's kind of got a light bitterness on the end of it, like not aggressively bitter, but a nice, light, crisp finish that kind of welcomes you back for another drink.
Man,
Just super citrusy and tropical.
Are you going to can this one?
Yes, it's in cans.
Good. We'll be taking some of this home.
Are they available today for purchase? Like
they're
the cans?
available in
yes. Okay.
Talking our language.
There's going to be that much less when we leave here.
Yeah.
You know, I always love asking this question of guys that or you're in what you do. Where do your ideas come from in brewing this kind of beer?
Man, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, originally for us when we were getting started, so my business partner Zach and I were engineers at Nissan getting started, and we kind of randomly got assigned to the same team and kind of found out pretty quickly, like, oh, you like beer, I like beer. Oh, you brew beer, I brew beer too. Like, what do you like? And we kind of bonded over our love for Belgian beer.
Yeah, that's what you guys started out for sure.
And that's kind of how we got started. He, honeymooned with his wife in Belgium, and then I actually, my now wife at the time, girlfriend, was backpacking through Europe, and I met her in Belgium. So both of us have spent time there, loved the beer, and that's like kind of what we fell in love with. And so a lot of the things that we started out with were all just kind of based on our passion for that. There was, Black Abbey was in town that does a lot of Belgian European stuff. And, they were really early into the market with that. And I think Nashville probably wasn't quite ready to embrace just in Belgian and European. So they, started doing a lot more American stuff to kind of supplement and complement what they were doing. And then we had, like Embrace the Funk that was doing the wild, funky, sour side of things. And so we were wanting to come in and kind of like really put more of an emphasis. I think originally our plan was to kind of do some more wild, funky sour, and then Brewery opened while we were business planning. And we were like, holy cow, man. These guys are killing.
That's tough, man. They're good at what they do too, man. I love Brewery.
So we really like, okay, they've got that nailed. We don't, Nashville has got that now. We don't need to come in and do any more of it. So let's really focus more on the clean side of things.
Sure.
And for the space that we've got, it really just makes more sense for us. Like, if you've been here, we don't have room for barrels back there. Every brewery tour I do, people are like, "Oh, you're gonna barrel age stuff," and my answer is always, as soon as you can find me space to put a barrel back here,
I'll do it.
We will do it. We want to do it. We just don't have the space for it. So that was kind of our inspiration starting out, and then, our name. Fait La Force comes from the country motto of Belgium, L'Union Fait La Force, which means strength and unity. And so the whole concept behind the brewery was always meant to be this merger of old world meets new world, and like Victorian farmhouse meets like modern urban center. And
that's the tap room. Yeah, that's absolutely the tap
that was you. So we were talking about that. We were inside grabbing a couple of beers before we hit record, and Scott goes, "Man, I love like the feng shui."
Yeah.
And I don't know. I remember what word you used, but
what do I call it? Damn it.
The artfully placed NBA jam.
yeah, exactly.
It is
eclectic.
It's a perfect. That's the word you use. Yeah,
and it's perfect. It does blend.
It's a good combination of like old school meets new school.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want the tap room, the brand to feel like. That's also what we want in our beer. And so we do all the old world Belgian, European lager, but we also want to infuse that with some modern and urban American beers as well. So we do, hazy IPA. We do some different IPAs. But we also love playing around with the like intersection of the two. So we were one of the first in the city to do a cold IPA, which is essentially a lager IPA. And then we do a lot of West Coast Pilsner as well. Like you're infusing like
Pilsner
that
guy over here,
old world Pilsner with West Coast American hops, and it's like a cool mixture of old world and new world. And honestly,
balance.
We've kind of fallen in love with, because we love hops and we love hoppy things, but I think Zach and I both are kind of like, we'll get into an IPA, we're like, oh, this is delicious, and then about 8 ounces in, we're like, this is a lot. Like, it's pretty big. But doing like a hazy pale ale, which we've done, or a cold IPA or a West Coast Pilsner, gives you all that hop flavor, but in a package that's super drinkable still, and you can actually have a pint of it for sure, go for another one.
Well, great thing you guys do too is the half pours. So if you find something like that and that's a little much, just do the half pour. It's a nice amount.
And that's I was actually recently was quoted in a Punch article that they did a whole article on
nice.
flights. So they reached out about like, hey, we know that you guys don't do flights, and there's this whole debate on flights or not flights. For us, half pours is the
That's a good
perfect
medium.
kind of like middle ground for both. I used to work at RIP Craft Brewed over here, everyone's favorite beer bar in town. That's no longer with us, but we did flights there, and man, bartending on flights was it was the worst. When someone came up like, "Oh, I want a flight," and they're like, "All right, well, here's your flight card," and then they'd be filling it out, and then they'd be like, "Can I get a sample of this before I get my?" I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Before I get a taster, can I get a taster? Basically,
you've got like boards, the carriers, and all these different glasses you're doing. And
I felt bad writing the names of the beers for you guys.
It was
my
tough.
handwriting is not good.
And there's like 8 of them on a flight board too.
Our point is
He's like, Mitch, what language is this?
It's like number 1, number 2 on there.
So it was a logistics nightmare, but also like. We put a lot of care and intentionality into the beers, and we want to make sure they're experienced with the same kind of
enjoy
care and
an
intentionality.
entire glass or a half pour.
And so it's the reason we have 4 different types of glassware here, that each beer makes it into the right glassware, and that you're not going to drink a huge like our Belgian dark strong or something, and then follow that up with just like a light lager that you're like, oh, this is just water at this point. You can't taste anything in it. So the half pour is kind of our way of being like, yes, we want you to be able to come. If you've never been here, we've got 12 beers on draft. We want you to be able to taste things and find what you like. But also we want you to do it with some level of intentionality that, meets what we put into the beer.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what I like. That's what I love about Fait La Force. And you ask anybody around town, Nashville or otherwise, and people that come in, because you guys just did the hop brewery.
We were here last Friday.
Earlier, and you guys were here last week. But like, Fait La Force is they're intentional with everything they do. And Parker, you just mentioned it was like we have different types of glassware. We have 12 different types of beers. Like, we don't do flights, but we do half pours to accommodate. Like, everything you guys do is with intention. And I honestly, that's probably one of the reasons because you guys are putting thought into things, that you guys are staying around. And this is, you guys just aren't 1 or 2 years old now. Like, we were talking with you and Tenfold back during the Ukraine beers when you guys were helping brew that beer for Ukraine. So, you guys are celebrating what, 4
it'll be
years?
3 years.
3 years
in February. So
okay.
2.5. Just past that. It feels like a lot longer.
It does. But you came from the time from opening up a brewery and doing things like that, and then you experienced the headwinds as like we kind of moved into, like, you guys experienced the supply chain crisis. You guys experienced the inflation going from, I'm sorry, but 5% inflation is bullshit. Like, I don't think Parker's expenses went up by 5% over the course of 2 years.
For sure.
And your demographic and like how you look at the industry, I'm guessing, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I'm guessing how you look at the beer industry has changed, and what you're doing from, who knows, maybe what you were doing 3 years ago was so ahead of its time and visionary that you haven't had to pivot, you haven't had to change. But are you seeing a different industry today, and how are you reacting to that?
The history of Fait La Force has been nothing but change. I think. It's been constant. And it goes all the way back. We started business planning like 2017, 2018. Signed our lease 2019, and thinking, all right, we're going to open middle of 2020, and then
the fuck
COVID
you were.
Everything changed immediately. So we're like, okay, let's pivot. And we were fortunately or unfortunately, like, before COVID really hit, we were like, our landlord was dragging, build out was taking forever, and we were like, hey man, hurry up. And then COVID hit, and we were like,
okay,
take your time. We're in no rush. And so things took longer, so we wound up opening 2022. And so when we opened right at that transition point of like, we're still masking, but social restrictions are kind of easing. Like, you can open up normal business, but social distancing and masking, all that stuff is still happening, but it's kind of on the tail end of that. So within a few months, we're phasing that out. And that whole first year, is like just letting people know, hey, we're here. People are finding out about it. So we're like starting off slow, but slowly getting busier and busier. Going into year 2, people have found out about us, and so now we're rapidly adapting, trying to just meet the needs of the market, because people are back out, but COVID has still had that sort of lasting, lingering impact of social patterns and behaviors and inflation and a lot of things. So changing, and then coming into, we still had good growth of year 2, and then coming to year 3, an election year when people are always a little antsy and nervous and like holding on to their money. And of course, inflation is still a thing. And so, people are spending a little less. And then you've also got increased competition from THC seltzers and, tons of openings of breweries, but also more wine and cans and accessibility to like alcoholic Dunkin' Donuts iced latte. Everything's got alcohol in it now. Yes, everything. Yes. So it's a market where people have less to spend. People, I think, are a little bit more health conscious now and drinking a little bit less. Yeah. And then there's way more competition from various sources.
Even Sunny D's in the game.
I mean,
yes, they are.
They all are.
In Tang. Well, I mean, Southern Grist makes a Tang.
So we've,
hang on, what?
They're a melted snow cone. They have a Tang.
Oh, I saw that. Okay, the Tang powder. Yeah.
So we've, started off when we opened. We're like, all right, we're just gonna do beer. We don't want to do food. We're beer guys. We're not gonna do food. We don't want to do liquor and wine. We're gonna do beer. We're not gonna have TVs in here. It's just gonna be that. And then slowly but surely, it was like, I think we probably need some food. And like, you know what? We like college football. We're in the South.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should throw a TV or two up in here. And
you want people to stay longer, right?
Yeah.
Or be a destination to come to on a Saturday afternoon in SEC country.
Exactly. Right? And then slowly adding, like, you know what? Not everyone, as much as we want them to drink beer, and as much as I think if you try it, you're going to find something you like. Yeah. Not everyone does drink beer, so let's add in wine and now cocktails. And so it's been like every step of the way, we've kind of like, all right, where's the market? What are people doing? Where are we seeing success? And like food is the biggest one. So we had done snacks, and then we kind of added our own sort of food program. And then now we've added on Jam Box, which sandwich
good call,
shops.
by the way.
Amazing.
So now we have a more full service, all the time, dependable, food program that's really solid. So it's just been a lot of change.
Can we talk about, because you were just describing a little bit about the inside of Fait La Force. There is no other brewery in Nashville that you go into that looks like your brewery.
Nope.
Can you describe
Good point.
Can you describe the inside and the thought process
For sure.
behind it?
So so that was, getting like as we're opening, that was one of our kind of core pillars that we wanted to stand on, is that, a lot of craft breweries, like through the big kind of craft beer surge, were opening, and a lot of it was like the tap room was almost an afterthought, right? It was like, we're opening a brewery, we're in a warehouse space, we've got all this industrial space, but we want to have a place where people can drink. So maybe let's just like throw out some folding chairs and some tables, and it's just like very concrete, metal, maybe some rustic wood. It's like very masculine, kind of just like industrial warehouse space kind of vibes of the tap room. And we're in a very multicultural, diverse city. Let's create a space that is intentionally welcoming and, a place that everyone feels welcome into. Craft beer historically has been a very monocultural, bearded white guy around the table.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, exactly.
You absolutely
I do resemble that.
I haven't caught
remark.
up to you yet, though.
And so it's like, all right, all of us are going to walk in here and still feel comfortable and drink a beer, but let's make it where it's also anyone else can walk in here and feel comfortable and have a beer and sit around the table and talk and have a good time and feel comfortable. So our tap room was very intentionally made to feel kind of like our, what I described as our kind of business model, and what we want our brand to be around is old world meets new world. So the way we've described it is like an old Victorian castle was left abandoned, and then an urban core developed around it. So like they left this this Victorian room, but an urban core came around it, so people came in and kind of like started putting some neon in and an NBA Jam machine, and it's like now it's like that urban modern place, but it's still got that velvet and gold and bronze, and we've got mannequin Piz, like the famous statue from Belgium, in there as our mascot. That we
have a
dress
chair in there that looks like it's from ancient times, like
all
1800s or something.
I mean, all of that stuff was thrifted for. I mean, over those 2 years of construction delays, we basically took the opportunity, like, all right, let's just be on Facebook Marketplace and estate sales and anywhere we can find, go thrifting for stuff. And so, we have a leather couch that was Amish made. We've got some red like velvet furniture that actually came from just up the road from a house off of Facebook Marketplace. We've got the kind of centerpiece, the blue couch and white chair. That actually all came out of a double wide trailer in Jackson, Tennessee.
Nice.
It was all plastic covered, and
That's
like
great.
when we got it here, like we kept the plastic covering on during construction, but once we're getting close to open, like, all right, let's take it off. We took it off, and it was brand new underneath. They were like, "This is amazing."
That's
so,
great.
It's everything in there, other than just like the main seating and bar seating. Like everything in there was thrifted from somewhere.
I love it.
That's great. I remember when you guys opened, and I alluded to this earlier, like when we take a trek to Murfreesboro, we like to hit them all.
Mhm.
You guys open, and you're like, oh, shit, they're right down from New Heights. So there was another one. My point is, it's another one on the trek. When I'm in this area,
Yep.
we're gonna hit New Heights, we're gonna hit Fait La Force, we're gonna hit Tennessee Brew Works. So to me, it was a great thing. Add another one. It was like, oh, there's another one we get to do, on a Saturday afternoon or something.
And that was definitely, pretty intentional too. When we were looking at spaces, the soccer stadium hadn't officially been like, the pen hadn't hit paper yet that the soccer stadium was going there, but all the rumblings and inklings were like, all right, the soccer team's gonna go there, and we're doing European beer, so we're
Seems like a good fit.
it's a perfect fit. So, and also knowing that if that stadium hits, the economic development that'll hit the area will be, only benefit us. And then also being within walking distance of a few other breweries, New Heights, Jackalope, Tennessee Brew Works. There's Disc in the cidery around the corner, as well as some other bars. It's competition, but it's also now becomes a destination where people can come and hit a few places. And so we all can kind of piggyback off each other. And we're like, oh, you like this? Well, walk around the corner. There's another great spot to go to.
That's right. And I bet you get this too. If somebody's here, they're like, hey, where can we go? What's next? If we want to leave here and we want to,
Every day.
And they probably do the same thing for you guys.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Every day.
And Scott and I were just here a week ago because we were doing the Music City Brew Hop tour. So you're kind of describing that, like you guys are on the tour. How important has that been to partner with those guys? Talk about that.
It's super helpful. Their business is also essentially craft beer business. So they're feeling the same headwinds as we all are. If people are drinking less, then there's less people who want to ride a trolley to go drink at all these places.
Right.
So they're definitely having headwinds, but we're definitely all trying to kind of partner together to boost that.
Yep.
Because the trolley is super, super great. They do private rentals and stuff, so it's not running every day. It runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but sometimes the trolley's down for a private rental, and you can feel it. Like, when they send out the numbers and you see, oh, they're going to have 30 on it today, but none tomorrow. Like, you definitely feel that. And so, we just got done doing, the Olympics happened this summer. So we did a beer Olympics thing with all, 5 of the breweries on that loop and the trolley.
That's right.
To kind of like highlight, like, hey, like this is a fun, like pretty affordable activity. I think the trolley is like $40 for the day.
That's
And
cheap
so-
entertainment.
Yeah.
Today's
Yeah.
world.
It is.
Yeah, it really is.
40 bucks, you get to go 7 different breweries on the route, and it's kind of like, it comes by every hour, so you can pick your own schedule.
They were just here. They just pulled up.
they
Yeah.
just came by.
Well, when we
Was that
came
what that
here-
was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When we came
Yeah.
here last Friday, we stayed here for 2 hours. We're like, okay, we're gonna, we did the 1 hour the first time, 2 hours here, and then we jumped on to somewhere else after this.
Nice.
Yeah.
So because we want to spend, we had been before, but Steve only got to spend 1 beer's worth of time here before because it was back in January when it was cold. And it was for that
Only
week.
12 degrees out, and
And we left-
decided to go to. Here's the funny thing. We decided it was 12 degrees outside. Let's go to Brewery.
We went to Brewery.
Yeah, nice. The only unconditioned brewery in the
What
city.
the heck are we doing? And then we went, and then we came
It's
here.
every bit as cold
and it was
inside as
like,
it is outside.
It's cold everywhere
Yes.
today, and I was like, "Why are we?"
Right. So we did
But the
that.
beer is worth it, though.
But the
Yes.
beer was worth
Yeah.
it. It was still worth it to get out, but it was like,
Well,
it's
it was the
cold.
Friday of that week. We were
Yeah.
itching to get the hell out of the house. We could finally, drive out of the neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
because it had been ice. And then we did that. And like, well, let's go somewhere inside. And it was just as cold because of, just because it was just so cold outside.
Yeah.
Honestly,
We
it
had
felt
one.
like we were at a football game, and nobody's house was warm then. 'cause
It's like you kind of got to earn it, though. Like Joel and Spencer are doing the Lord's work over there,
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
some beer. And so it's like, okay, I gotta like suffer through a little cold or heat, whatever the temperature is outside.
Yep.
You're gonna get it a little bit inside too. But once you get that beer, you're like, all right, it's worth it.
It is worth it. It absolutely is.
I do want to circle back to one thing I said earlier. I was like, fuck balance, because it's West Coast and Belgian. But we got to talk to some breweries that came in with CBC. Is it 2 years ago or what?
Yeah, it was 2. It would have been 20. Yeah,
it was St. Bernardus, Duchess, and it was a fucking
good
blast.
time. Yeah.
But I was joking about fuck balance. Obviously, you're about balance.
Yeah.
But is there anything you want to talk about balance, since you do have a lot of Belgian forward brews? I just want to ensure that, if you have that kind of face, talk about balance.
So maybe don't fuck balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, are you talking specifically in terms of like an individual beer or like the beer lineup itself?
It's a good question. Whatever Belgians would like to hear. I would think probably just on a beer by beer basis. When you started, I loved the Saisons.
Yeah.
And those were absolutely killer. No one else had anything like that.
That's what got you here.
Yes.
Was that Belgian style Saison beer.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't being done in Nashville, at least not in this area a lot, because you've got Embrace the Funk and you've got New Heights doing a lot of West Coast stuff. But
yeah,
initially there wasn't a lot of what he does.
True. I hadn't had any flavors like that yet.
Yeah. So Saison is what we love as well, and it was kind of what got us into it. And we got the orchestral fanfare. That's like our house Saison that we always have. And for anyone in the region around here, like the most comparable thing I always say is like Blackberry Farm Classic. It's tried and true classic Belgian Saison. Zach and I, we've bonded over our love for Tank 7 from Boulevard. Like that beer is unbelievable, which apparently Boulevard is not distributing to our anymore. So if anyone's got some Tank 7 laying around,
man,
we'll take it. But yeah, I mean, for us, stylistically, how our palate kind of, I guess what our preference is we like things to be a little less sweet, a little more dry, a little more earthy, a little more bitter. Like we essentially just, when you look at a style guideline, if there's like a sweetness bar, we're always on the less sweet end of it for sure, like right on that kind of line. And same thing with our Saison. Our Saison is really classic. It's earthy. It's got a little citrusy note to it. It's got a little bit of that peppery finish, some bubble gum in there in between, but it's like super, super dry. Yeah. And it's, we definitely are striving for balance in there between, like we don't want it to be like just dry, bitter, earthy, like just only one note. We definitely want to have a lot of things that complement each other in there. But, at least for us, it's probably not the typical American palate. Like the typical American palate probably leans a little sweeter, but we are kind of like, all right, let's pull it back a little bit and go for that more dry beer, because I mean we think it's just a lot more drinkable that way. You can have a few more of it. It invites you back for more, and that's really what we like. And we've done a few different iterations of Saison. Orchestral fanfares are like house, like classic, that's our flagship Saison. And then we'll do different dry hop iterations of it. And then we've got a rye Saison we do a lot in the fall. At one point early on, because we've said we'll always have a Saison on. It's anyone in the beer industry will tell you Saison does not sell. It's always going to be your worst seller on your draft list. People
but it's
don't
you guys' house beer.
But we love it.
Yeah.
And early on, we had one Saison, and then we had 2 Saisons on the draft list. And then at one point, we got to 3 Saisons on the draft list. It turns out that is too much Saison for everybody. So
that's a beer name.
Too much Saison. Oh, there's your next beer. Too much Saison.
So we've grabbed the reins like, okay, we may want 3 Saisons, but we also have to sell the beer to somebody. And so let's maybe 1 Saison at a time is enough.
It's interesting. Scott and I were just talking about this on a recent podcast, and we mentioned, because we did a podcast about the brewery tour and what we got from you guys. And one of the things I said was, and I think it kind of leads into what you're saying, and we all know that drinking beer is subjective. Everybody has different things. But what would you get on a flight? What would you get on a pint? And what would you get on a 6-pack? And I feel like what you all do, if you're into, typical beer, you're not into like the sours or whatever, which is okay. I think that I would get what I like from you guys. I would get on a 6-pack.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As in, like we said with the Imperial Menace, we're taking some of that. We're taking some home, and then the one he just brought
out. Wet hot, yeah.
Yes, we're taking some of that home. Yes.
Yeah, the Imperial Menace, that one this year. So it's the second time we've done that beer, and it's like kind of like our Star Wars beer. So we're at the very tail end of that batch now. But man, that beer, and then as well like the Mahogany Hall, our Doppelbock that we do, both of those beers this year when we tried them for the first time off the tanks and they finished, we were like, whoa, like these came out nice this year. And we kept drinking them like, holy smokes. And then we wound up sending both those beers to Craft Beer and Brewing for review, and both of those got placed in the magazine and got a review. Wow. And they were each of them. This is also kind of a running joke, but each of them was the second highest scoring beers in their category. They both got 93s, and the highest scoring beers in each of those categories was a 94.
Oh, and they just barely knocked out.
Wow. And when you look at the way they scored, we get the they do it by half points, but when they publish it, they only do like the whole points. But we were a half point, really less. And it's always a running joke with Zach that he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like he brews these beers that are always like just, whatever it was. We looked back, and I think it was with the Doppelbock, like there hadn't been a Doppelbock that had scored even like maybe 89, 90 was like the highest ever, like in the history of the magazine. And this one scored a 93.
That's awesome.
But in the same magazine, there happened to be one that scored a 94 that was from Soul and Spirits in Memphis. And we're like, of course.
Come on,
man.
Of course. The one time, right? You guys got beat out. So it was by half a point.
It's a funny thing. But, like, everyone's out there, it's an honor to even.
Hey, man, take pride in your 93, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So we were super excited about it.
Hey, somebody, take their out off the knees next year and then resubmit yours. So it's just yours.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what we got to do to get that man a gold medal, but it's going to happen.